because you money gone, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bills there'll be money. No, because you money gone, you hustle for tell me money.
Yes, money, neighbor.
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. This all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for.
I said money, neighbor.
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, and I know what you conniving money.
Oh, Joseph.
means I will be back. Ready to rumble! Hey! It's now 7 hours 1 on the 6th day of the 6th month in the year 2022. That is the 6th of June in the year 2022. Welcome to another program of Buxtonian Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. I'm coming to you live from the studios of Kams TV located in Buxton. And of course, we're coming to you on social media, Facebook Live, because you know, there's no spectrum to be given to folks like myself. Because if you're black, you must stand back. If you're brown, you could stick around. And if you're white, or you think you're white, haha, closer you are to white, everything will be alright. Yes, it's another week. I trust you had a productive week last week. I trust that all the pieces fell into place and that you came out stronger, more empowered, and more determined to succeed. I trust that the weekend was kinder to you. You had the opportunity to rest and recuperate, R&R, and you were able to connect also with some good friends and so on. Because no man is an island, no man stands alone. And so we need friends, as in community. When we talk friends, a lot of people believe we just talk about, you know, the body that we hang down the road with and so on, you know, as they say, you ride or die. But community is more than that. Friendship is more than that. Some of us have friends we haven't seen in years. We haven't uttered a word to in eons, in years. But you know what? Deep within our heart, we know that's my friend. And if I find myself in a situation and I pick up my phone and I call, it's likely my call is going to be answered at the first ring or at the earliest opportunity available. If not answered, returned. And likewise, those very friends know that they can do that. It's just that sometimes you get caught up in your day-to-day hustle, as we say, and you have to respect the hustle. You have to respect the hustle. The people are hustling under different circumstances. And so we may not have the time to call each other every day and discuss the latest gossip. But we're hustling to ensure that, you know, we can make a better day for not only ourselves and families, but those very friends. Should the need arise that they find themselves in certain situations. And it's important that we keep that in mind. No man is an island. No man stands alone in everything that we do. Many of us like to operate like one-man army. It is the I. We do everything by ourselves. It is the I. Because we don't want others to know the trick. We don't want others to know the trade secret. We don't want others to know what we are doing. It is important, yes, to protect what you're doing and the important elements of what you're doing. But it is also important to have, as I like to say, an understudy, somebody who can carry on the legacy in your absence. We're just human beings. We don't know when this life will leave our bodies. And what would be painful for many of us is if, as life leaves our body, we look back and we recognize that all we were toiling to establish alone is going to crumble and go to waste because there's no one left to carry on a legacy. And many of us who might be arguing that when you see, when you look back, when Forbes Burnham looks back at this country, that he had an integral role in shaping. He turns in his grave, as many would say. Knowing that all of those who were around him and beside him, all of them, it would appear as though none of them learned lessons at his feet to ensure the continuity of his legacy. The man that he handpicked, Desmond White, over Hamilton Green. In short order, after his death, started tearing his legacy apart. Many will argue that circumstances caused that. Cold War was coming to an end. The US had a different approach to the PNC government and so on and so forth. PNC operatives and so on and so forth. And so Desmond White right away went into opening up the economy, removing restrictions on certain forward produced items, etc., etc. And critically, isolated many of whom he considered the bad eggs of the Forbes Burnham era. And so he had this big falling out with Hamilton Green, the man who was beside Forbes Burnham, quote unquote, in the trenches, keeping things together. And we've seen the downward spiral from then on to now. We've seen the struggles of Robert Corbyn after Desmond White to rebuild the party, if I can call it that. He has had his successes, but he has had his fair number of failures. But the one thing he can say, or many will say, is that when he departed with a party stronger than he perhaps inherited. Because while he was there, the numbers were dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. And then he came up with his grand idea to get into bed with the WPA, the arch enemy. And that brought changing fortunes. If we haven't learned from that, if our political leaders have not learned from that, then we will continue to be in this morass we're in. Because what Corbyn demonstrated is that sometimes you have to put your differences aside for the greater good of your people. Of your people. I have been, you know me, I'm always observing and analyzing and criticizing and so on, and bringing the information to you as raw as our culture itself will allow us to. I don't mince words, I don't try to sugarcoat anything. I give it to you as it is so you can understand it. Because out of that understanding, one would expect that there is change in attitudes. And so this morning there's some things I want to address, as I call them, lies, damn lies, and disrespect. Many who were in the coalition, led by David Granger, after the departure of Robert Corbyn, will tell you that immediately after Corbyn left, David Granger did perhaps just what Hoyt did to Bonham, started destroying his quote-unquote legacy, systems that were left in place. Because of course every leader has his own style, and every leader believes that he brings a different set of ideas and possibilities to the party and to the fore and so on. Yeah. But like we witnessing with the PPP, many leaders believe that they're not supposed to be building on what they inherited. They just tear it down and start over. And so with David Granger at the helm of the coalition, a lot of things which existed under Corbyn went through the door. For example, there were certain arrangements for WPA as a founding member of APNU and the PNC as another founding member of the APNU to have what I would call bilateral discussions should certain issues arise. When important decisions are to be made, the two of us started this thing. Let us sit and examine what's the situation, and so knock our heads together, as we like to say in Guyana, and come up with a common approach. That went through the door early o'clock. Any meeting with the WPA and the PNC as part of the coalition will take place among or inclusive of every other member at the same time. And so these two founding members couldn't sit outside of the regular gathering of coalition members and strategize, you know. No, that couldn't happen. And so as Chinua Achebe said, things fell apart. People are still saying WPA must return to the coalition because people recognize hope in coalition politics. The possibility is that WPA will, assuming that the conditions are going to be feasible, make things feasible, return to the coalition. Because WPA, for all you know, was always involved in coalition politics. WPA joined with the PPP and the TUF and a whole host of other parties in the 80s into the 90s under at least two big tents. You had the PCD, People's Coalition for Democracy. I seem to remember that one. And so maybe if the conditions are right, you can see that happening. But are you seeing the movements, if I can call it that? Are you seeing the workings that would suggest to you that other people are interested in rebuilding, strengthening the coalition, if you can call it that? I saw over the weekend or in the course of last week utterances to the extent that the Alliance for Change is now considering its part in the APNU AFC coalition, whether or not it has a meaningful role to play, whether or not it should stay in the coalition and so on. they have Congress that's coming up. I think that's what they call it. And it's one of the issues they will examine there. Let me put it out there. I won't be surprised. I will not be surprised if at the end of that Congress, the coalition and so on, it is announced that the AFC is leaving the APNU-AFC coalition. Sometimes people think that we are Obia men, we are seafarers. You just examine what is before us. Look at the president, look at the behavior of the leader of the AFC. Look at his utterances. It would seem in recent times that he's doing so much to ingratiate himself, to be in the good books of the likes of Jack Dio and Irfan Ali and so on, and the PPP. Right? He's there all the time. He's like another member of the coalition who say you must position yourself for recognition. Ramjitan behaves like the prodigal son. You left home, you had a good time, and so situations have changed. You think it's time to return home.
Low battery. Low battery.
That's what it would appear to be. So we need to keep our eyes out on that. We need to also watch, listen and watch, and learn by examining the actions of the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton. Good morning, sir. I understand he's out there doing work, meeting in the communities and so on. But I wonder what partnerships are being built to ensure that all of that work will pay off at the end of the day. Because like I said, no man is an island, no man stands alone. If you are a leader or you're a foot soldier, they got somebody you must report to. Somebody must know what you're doing. Somebody must be able to share the vision, and so that they can help to keep it alive should something happen down the road. Are these leaders that we have, and I'm talking leaders in civil society and elsewhere, political parties and so on, do they really report to the constituents? Do they help them to understand what's happening? Do they help them to understand the plan of action, etc.? Think about that. And while you think about it, I need to take a drum break to deal with the situation. I should take about 3-5 minutes max. Bear with me. good book says or asks the question, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet loses his soul? The question is, what does it profit leaders to go there and do all of the work, or put in a lot of work, but nobody understands the work that is being done? Nobody can continue the work that is being done because they don't have an understanding of the importance of that work. One of the things I read the AFC as saying is that they are at this point because they are not sure, or they don't believe that they are included enough in decision making. So is there a breakdown in relationship? Is there a breakdown in communication between these two major political parties who are now the remnants of the coalition, the APNU-AFC coalition? When last, for example, that group that represents the coalition had a sit down, and so the AFC can understand what's the APNU's current state and position on issues? You see, sometimes, as they say, there's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thin line between the PNC and the APNU, AFC. Especially that it has one leader, Aubrey Norton. So while Aubrey Norton is out there working to rebuild the PNC, many might see that as coalition work. But in actuality, it is PNC's work. The question is, what is happening over at the coalition? And if nothing is happening over at the coalition, then one has to ask itself, is the coalition just a coalition of convenience? That tomorrow an election is called and you call it coalition together. For coalitions to succeed, in my mind, they need long-term planning. And so just as you're rebuilding, people have to be able to walk on several planks at the same time. You're rebuilding the PNC, you're rebuilding the AFC, you're rebuilding the WPA. We're also rebuilding the coalition. You have to recognize that. Right? You have to recognize that. But as it would appear, we're in a situation where, and not only politically, when you look across the country, it's as if when the masses give authority to a few to lead, as in the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union, they behave as though the masses have given up all rights to have an input into what is happening. Right? That's not how it is supposed to be. You've been entrusted to lead. But we also have ideas. We also have dreams and aspirations. We also would want to see movements along a certain line. But you can only know our thinking if you consult with us. We will only understand your line of march if you sit and have a discussion with us. And so I think it's one of the things which is lacking in this society. It's one of the things which is lacking in this whole political situation, socio-political situation. I don't think enough is being done to help people to understand what's happening and how you're dealing with it, what roles they have to play or what roles they can play. Let's talk about the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union. Last week we read that, or we learned that the Chief Co-ops Development Officer, CCDO, acting, met the players Let the contesting parties over what is happening there in terms of all the shenanigans for leadership. Right? All the shenanigans. And in that meeting, in short, what happened is, despite all the breaches identified by folks like Trevor Ben and Patrick Mentor and others who understand the co-op and the regulations which govern co-op, all the breaches that were identified, despite all of those breaches, the CCDO said, the deed is done, leave it as it is. Because if you don't leave it as it is, I will have to implement an IMC. But just as the CCDO has the authority to implement an IMC, the membership has the authority to dismiss the committee of management and have them replaced by way of a special general meeting. But while the CCDO is exercising our right, the CCDO and the masqueraders and the management committee of the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union are not respecting the rights of the members. Because the members have asked, by way of petition, far exceeding the number of signatures that they needed, to cause to be held a special general meeting. Up until now, there is no indication that that special general meeting is going to be held. Because the masqueraders are not keen on hosting that meeting because of the fact that they know that the petition says that all of them who are masquerading should never ever be elected again to that management committee. And so if you are asking me to convene a meeting that will banish me, then why would I want to convene that meeting? What forces me to convene that meeting? What ensures that that meeting is convened? The regulations which say that the members got the final say. But that regulation could only be upheld if the CCDO insists on it being upheld. And for all intents and purposes, it would appear as though the CCDO has no interest in having the regulations upheld so that that special meeting can be held so that the masqueraders can be moved off of the scene. Because it's not within her interest and her political handler's interest to have that happen. So the members, despite being the majority, are non-entities. As it would appear, they are non-entities. They ain't got no say in this thing. What is the next step, therefore? What logically should happen? Logically, a member or members can come together and approach the courts on this issue. First and foremost, they can put an end, put a hold to what's happening. by getting an injunctive order, an injunction, to prevent this current group of masqueraders from acting on behalf of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Union. And when that injunction is passed, I don't know what are the instructions that will follow the injunction, whether or not they have to return to the earlier status quo of Trevor Ben as chairman, Bento as vice chairman, and so on and so forth, or if it is going to result in the institution of an IMC. But at the end of the day, since it is recognized that things are not going to be the way it's supposed to be, an injunction can be sought. Right? And certain orders asked for to move forward. One of those orders could be that the meeting be held by the prescribed date. But injunctions cost money. Legal actions cost money. And I rather suspect that we're not going to see any injunction, because the ordinary rank and file members of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Union don't have the kind of money that is needed to approach the courts. My understanding is, as soon as you approach a lawyer on a matter like this, you have two sets of fees. One is called the filing fee, and the other is the service fee, which means the lawyer's fee plus filing fees. And it can get into the millions. Right? So as soon as you start thinking about this, you have to start thinking, I need at least $1 million. If one member or two members, because that's all it takes, a member or two, from the rank and file of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Union to file an injunction, if one or two members step forward and say, we're going to file this injunction, or we would like to be the face of this injunction, the question is, where are they getting the money from to pay the service fee and the filing fee? Because for the greater part, these are poor people. And I know I've spoken to a number of persons who are willing to file an injunction. But it comes right back to that. Where are we getting the money from? Who is going to pay for this? We don't have the money to pay for it. And so, like I said, I rather suspect we're not going to see an injunction against what is happening at the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Union. And we're not likely to see that special meeting, I think, the 25th of this month either. Why? Because people are operating individualistic. People are operating as though each is an island. Those who are given the task of leading well, Dennis Champagne Collison, I beg your indulgence, kindly educate us so we can know what kind of money we're talking about. Note, as I like to say, I ain't a loose cannon. I don't just run out there. Good? And note, I didn't say it's $1 million filing fees. I said the cost would approximate $1 million inclusive, or a combination of, the lawyer's fee and filing fees. Right? So the cost of representation plus filing is likely to run you in the vicinity of $1 million minimum. Or maybe, depending on which lawyer you're looking at, it might be less, but my research says talking about $1 million. Put your money where your mouth there. Collison, I would like if you can explain further for us if you have other information. But here it is I'm seeing. $1 million looks like climbing Mount Everest. Tough task. Because it is looked at from the individual point of view. But if we were to look at the membership of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union, there are thousands of them. And let's take 1,000 members, for example, and each gives $1,000. You'll get $1 million quickly. If you take 2,000 members and each give $500, you're going to get $1 million. And so the cost of the petition is not insurmountable. It can be done. But the people can only know what is expected of them if it is explained to them. If leaders come off of their high horses and meet the people they represent and say, well, this is the situation. They say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so if you shut them out, nobody knows what the situation is. Of the few members that I spoke to who were willing to file this petition, they don't have the reach. They have to depend on their leaders to make it possible for others to understand, well, hey, this is what it will take, this is what is required to file this petition. So I'm sitting here this morning explaining this on behalf of them. And so all of you union members who are hearing me should start reaching out to the people you quote-unquote trust, the people you have empowered to lead this process, and ask them, hey, how can we help? How can we help? Are you willing to be the custodian of this $1,000 donation from each of us until it gets to $1 million so that this petition can be filed? This injunction can be filed? All of you, most of you perhaps knew of the meeting that took place Thursday, Friday, whenever it was. Has anybody reached out, for example, to Trevor Ben, Patrick Mentor, or any other member of the committee and say, what is the way forward? How can we help? Has any member of the committee reached out to the membership and said, this is the situation, this is how you can help? No. Everybody is operating what? In a silo. No man is an island. And it's one of the problems we have in our society. Black society. Working class society. So I'm encouraging you this morning, start calling people. Start calling people, find out. Hey, is who want to file this petition, this injunction? Do we have a number for that person? Can we contribute to the cause? Because the burden becomes lighter when many hands are at work. And it would be a burning shame, I'm saying it would be a burning shame, it would be a burning shame if for $1 million this situation is not challenged in a court. Somebody says some law firm needs to do a pro bono case. Maybe a law firm doesn't have to do a pro bono case. Maybe a lawyer doesn't have to do a pro bono case. Maybe they can be asked to reduce their fees. Filing fees are filing fees. Right? Filing fees are filing fees. At the instruction of my physician. You know, that's why I have to be so careful of how I act on these programs. I don't know who is looking. Anyways, filing fees are standard perhaps. You can't change them. What is a lawyer or a legal firm willing to cut, let's say, their service fees by half? Right? And so if the lawyer or the firm is willing to cut their service fee by half, then obviously the $1 million burden gets reduced. Not necessarily by half, but by that amount that the lawyer or the firm is going to reduce their fees. So that too might be an option. But is it that we always have to ask people to do free work because it is community work? No, I don't think it's necessary to always ask people to do free work because it is community work. Lawyers have to earn their keeps. They have overhead, they have families, and so on, and they have to earn their keeps. What we can ask them is to make a contribution to the cause by reducing their fee, taking a smaller amount than what is standard. Right? Sometimes as a society, sometimes as a group, we have to approach them and say, listen, you have a moral responsibility to cut your fees. Because this thing is going to be good for all of us as a people, as a nation, as a society. Good? But don't fool yourself. Just as I'm saying that there's some people who are in the business, the legal business, well, you're going to the legal business or any business to make money. And so some people are only concerned about the amount of money they could make. I'm the best in this business. I'm going to fit my fee at the highest, and you could pay it or leave it. Because there's another person waiting for my service out there. They don't look at the greater good to society. One of the things I marvel at, and I ask myself, how could it have been done on one side of the aisle, but it can be done on the other side of the aisle? Exaggeratingly, every day, Anil and Lal had a case before the courts challenging some action or other of the past government. Every day, Anil and Lal was before the court. Every day he was filing something. Every day he was challenging something. Is it that he has access to limitless money? Or is it that the people who are the faces of these filings, is it that they had access to limitless money? Or is it that he recognized that he was doing this for his society? And since he was doing it for his society, he was going to do it minus the cost, his fees? Or is it that the people he represented were spreading the burden so that it becomes lighter on the individuals. I don't know how he was doing it, but it was being done, and it shows that it can be done. Why then is it not being done on this other side of the island? Is it because we're operating as though every man is an island, every man stands alone? Is it just because of what's in it for me and not what's in it for us? These are things I want us to ask ourselves. And as some people will ask, how did we get here? We have our political representatives. A whole host of them are lawyers. A whole host of them were at the trough feeding while the coalition was in office. And I have no apologies to make for that, or what I'm about to say. A whole host of them. A whole host of them had benefits coming to them while the coalition was in office. You got people who were made senior counsels, people who were made special prosecutors. You know how much money special prosecutors made in this country? Go check the newspaper, you will see the amount of money special prosecutors were and are being paid in this country. And so if you were a special prosecutor, you make some money. What happened, man? You lick blackboard, you broke already in 2 years? That to reduce your fee for a particular issue, they're going to break your back. Patricia called them, maybe the PNC needs to establish a cartel too. But many will argue that they didn't take the time to establish a cartel. Many will argue that they shut themselves away from the people who could have helped to form that cartel. Don't let's go there. It's not necessarily going to be tidy. Y'all know me. Like I say, I don't curry favor. I don't sugarcoat anything. I call it as I see it. I was about to ask how many millionaires or multimillionaires the coalition made while it was in office, so that they can get the kind of support that they need now, financially and otherwise. Some people will tell me none, but I'm telling you they made millionaires and multimillionaires. But the millionaires and multimillionaires who were made under the coalition don't understand or didn't understand or refuse to accept that they now owe it to themselves to return the favor. Y'all know what I'm saying? They refuse to recognize and accept that they owe it to return the favor. Like I was saying, many were special prosecutors, they made a lot of money. Many were given silk by virtue of by just giving you silk, your value got up. Senior counsel this, senior counsel that. So when people come to you as senior counsel, they ain't coming to you as no barrister or whatever they call him. No ordinary lawyer. You have arrived, quote unquote. So a whole host of lawyers are around the coalition or were around the coalition when the coalition was in office, and they made money through all kinds of means, facilitating deals. being legal representatives to this firm and that firm because they have, what I would say, reach in the government. And obviously people have to pay for that, like sue. So let's run from that. The coalition had its own sues. And so the people out there who made money while the coalition was in office, don't let us fool ourselves. Don't they recognize now that there's some fights that they should be supporting? They should be the sponsors of some fight. Albeit, quote-unquote, clandestinely. They should stay in the background, but ensure certain fights are fought to the logical end and won. One of those fights is the GPSCCU matter. $1 million joke money. Joke money. Some of y'all just do dark things with $1 million in a night. But y'all ain't seeing the greater good. Should this Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union issue be allowed to just go the way it is right now? It's a slap in the face of the masses, the ordinary rank and file members of the co-op. It's a slap in their face. It's a slap in the faces of the political leaders, because this is a political issue. But people are not seeing, well, not that they're not seeing it. People are selfish in their assessments. And so despite it's a political issue and we are the political leaders, we are not willing to make the sacrifices financially and otherwise to have justice done in this situation. Because what it comes down to, how much should me? How will I benefit? I am not a member of the co-op. And this I includes me, Kidaki Amsterdam. I'm not a I was never a public servant really. I've never been a member of the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union. And so many will ask, why are you fighting this issue? How does it benefit you? It benefits me to fight the issue because the people who I claim to represent or have a desire to represent will be the beneficiaries of good management of this Public Service Co-op Credit Union. And so I have a moral responsibility to ensure that they are represented fully so that they get the kind of management which will see them benefit. The same goes for those in the political hierarchy, those who are lawyers, etc., and are in the political hierarchy. The coalition has several lawyers who are in Parliament, I think. Let me say, I think. I know Royzale Ford, Senior Counsel Royzale Ford is the Shadow Minister of Legal Affairs in the National Assembly. Well, Darren Wade is not in the National Assembly. Basil Williams is Senior Counsel. Basil Williams was Attorney General under the coalition. I see recently he has been reminiscing on a lot of cases that he represented the government in and so on. But I have not heard him coming to the fore and say, well, I will take this one on. I will take one for the team here. I didn't hear Royzale Ford say, I will take one for the team. I mean, they say, now everything you do, you go and stand on a mountaintop and say, I am doing it, and I will do it. But I really haven't heard anybody saying, well, you see this Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union issue? I'm going to deal with it. Because for the greater part, the people who will be affected are represented by me on the political level of things. I don't see that happening. And so what do I say? Members of the Co-op Credit Union, you have several options. Start calling your representatives at the Co-op Credit Union to ask them how you can help to meet this cost for this member or members to file this injunction. Likewise, call on your political leaders to play their part in having this matter resolved to the benefit of you. This is a political fight. This ain't just about union control, public service co-op credit union control. It's about control that will lead to further oppression of a particular group of people politically. And if the leaders can't see it, then I don't know what right they have leading. People believe every political matter is a matter in parliament or is a matter about government. Politics affects us every single day. Every single day, your life is affected by politics. You wake up this morning, you can't eat a piece of cheese that you want is because of politics. Because the politicians did not do enough to ensure that you are paid enough to be able to afford the basic necessities. Dexari said, now you see as citizens, why you don't get involved in politics? No, Dex, I disagree with you. Now you're seeing as citizens why you should get involved in politics. One of the things which is responsible, I think, for us having this dirty and stink political culture is because the people with morality, if I can call it that, always step back and say, I don't want anything to do with politics. So if you allow all the rotten, damaged cabbage to lead, where you can get that rotten, damaged leadership? Huh? If you believe that you are morally upright, let's say loosely, and you really have the interests of the people at heart, you ought to step into politics. Because when you don't occupy that position, somebody who really has only self-interest at heart is going to go and take it. And we will end up right where we are. This kind of behavior. Look at Charandas. Right? If one of you good deed person had gotten involved in politics, maybe you would have gotten Charandas' position and therefore we would not have ended up where we are. Right? I'm just trying to rationalize. The more good people, quote unquote good people, because the Bible says, above all else, the heart of man is desperately wicked. Right? If more good-hearted people were to step into the politics of this country, we might be able to change the politics of this country. But the people with good ideas and intentions and morality and so on are running, they're backing away from the fight. Politics is a dirty game, but you stay far from that. If the place is nasty, you stay far from the broom, how are you cleaning it? You expect somebody else to do the dirty work. And the people you expect to do the dirty work are the people who are enjoying the filth. Have you considered that? Have you considered that? Start holding them accountable. They don't like when I tell you these things. They don't like when I analyze them like that. I know that I sit down and cuss Kidaki. This one always tell himself he know. So now always putting me on blast. Yes, y'all gotta go on blast. Because it's y'all sit down there and collecting a parliamentary pension, a parliamentary salary, you know, is that me? It's not me, you know. It's y'all. All the parliamentarians. It's y'all, you know. And let me say this loud and clear. I don't want any parliamentarian to tell me that what they're getting from parliament is chicken feed. It's a stipend. It's small money. It is better than the salaries of the ordinary public servant. Number one. Number two. Number two, you are allowed to do other jobs as parliamentarians. We don't have a full-time parliament in this country. And so our parliamentarians are not full-time. Or they're not prevented from working other jobs. And so what they're getting from parliament is supplementary income. If they choose to sit with a quote-unquote stipend from parliament and do nothing else, then that's on them. That's on them. But they have an opportunity to have multiple streams. And most of them, if not all of them, utilize that opportunity. So how about sacrificing a fraction of 1 month's income towards a worthy cause for your political followers? Huh? I'll talk to me. Let me talk. Sometimes my reasoning I'm sure it puts me in a lot of trouble with other people, right? I'm going to pelt 2 stones here. I hope y'all could duck. And when I'm done pelting these 2 stones, I will open up the line. And let me say, I'm not pelting these stones from a position of knowledge. Well, 100% knowledge. I'm juxtaposing what I read in the media by way of some allegation or some sort against somebody. If it is accurate that over the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union, the CEO, newly hired CEO, gets about $1 million a month. Huh? Person gets about $1 million a month. I was told, I read, I understand, salaries plus allowances. I think a certain minister was trying to, in the efforts to paint Mr. Trevor Ben as perhaps the devil's incarnate, was saying to the public that as chairman of the Co-op Society, Trevor Ben was earning perhaps in excess of $1 million a month too. Let's assuming that's accurate. Trevor was earning, let's say, $1 million a month. What was his deputy, vice chairman Mentor, earning? What were the committee members earning? Because I read also where the committee members, their quote-unquote stipend was improved by increased by a great lot. I understand, quote unquote, people were getting livable wages. Maybe it's one of the only agencies in this country where people can say they're getting livable wages. And if that is true, why not ask those people? All of them will be willing to give, because some of them like the status quo, so they wouldn't want it challenged. But can we get some sacrifices from some of those who were sitting right up top there, or who are sitting right up top there, to support this member or members who want to file this injunction to see a better management in place for the Guyana Public Service Co-op Credit Union? Let's just, for argument's sake, say Trevor was getting $1 million. Just for argument's sake, ask him to contribute an entire $1 million. Make that big sacrifice. It's a month's salary. You could live off for 11 months. That's all I'm saying. Right? But of course, Maslow's hierarchy tells us, as we move up in life, our expenses become bigger. Understand that. The higher up you go, the more you will spend. And so while I'm seeing $1 million a month as big money, because I'm not up there, sometimes $1 million a month for Trevor or whoever is a drop in the ocean. Because if I'm earning $1 million a month, then my house would have to reflect that, my car would have to reflect that, the kind of clothing I wear will have to reflect that. And so I will very well find that I have a big mortgage, because my mortgage is based on that $1 million a month. The car I'm driving might be a gas guzzler, because it has to project my status. Right? I'm just rationalizing. But those are my thoughts on these issues this morning. Right? There's something I wanted to talk with you before I leave. Oh, there's a video I want to play. Right? There's a video I want to play. I hope I can get it. It's me again, Jah. On my knees to pray. Help me, Father, I pray. I don't want him to face another day. Good morning. Welcome to another program of Buxtonian Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. It is 7 hours 30 on the 7th day of the 6th month in the year 2022. Welcome to the program. One of my microphone is not reading. I don't know why. Can you hear me loud and clear? If you can hear me loud and clear, just say that. Say loud and clear so that I know that you can hear me. Okay? Because I'm not getting, one of my microphones is not speaking. I don't know why. But why not? Nevertheless, it's Tuesday morning. We would have expected ordinarily that former Minister of Finance Vincent Jordan would have been here. But because of circumstances, and he is unable to be here. Okay? But that doesn't mean that we are not going to be talking about things that impact us financially and otherwise. Because this morning, as you notice, the topic of the broadcast this morning, why not we? Why not us? Right? Why not us? I saw a comment early this morning. I'm trying to remember it. I had promised to address it, but I can't remember exactly what it is. I didn't take note of it, as in writing it down. Nevertheless, why not us? Last Friday, I think, was it last Friday, I was chatting with Mr. Mentor. Or whenever I was chatting with Mr. Mentor the other day, I mentioned in passing the fact that the residents of Annandale, Louisiana were going to be receiving their $150,000 cash grant, one-off grant for fisher folk on that day. And I asked the question, how many of us are fishermen? How many of us are fisher folk? How many of us operate in that industry? And we had that brief discussion about, blacks primarily not being in the fishing industry. Why not? Why are we not in the fishing industry? In that same conversation, I remember the young lady, and I eventually was reminded that her name is Alison Butters, who has had, I don't know if it still operates, somebody can educate me on that, the salted fish operation somewhere by the back road there, middle road, back road, somewhere in that La Penitence area, by the fire station, wherever the fire station is, somewhere around that area. And someone said she was actually carrying on her father's legacy, because her father, Butters, was into the trawler business or something to the extent. So, when I mention certain things, I don't mention them and leave them and move on. They continue to bog the mind. Why are we not in certain industries as a people? Especially as owners of the means of production, except labor. Because perhaps you could find us in a whole lot of industries, but not as owners of the plants, but as labor suppliers. And quite frankly, as the market is right now, labor suppliers get the least. Labor suppliers get the least. I saw recently a video of someone explaining the difference of being an employee, more so public servant, as against an employer or business owner. And in the simplest of terms, it says this: if you're an employee, when market situations change, it will affect you, and there's nothing you can generally do about it. But if you are an employer or a businessman, business person, what you do is pass on the cost of that change to your clientele. So as a public servant, as an employee, market prices are changing every day. There's nothing you can do about it. You're a price taker. Government says it will pay you $70,000 minimum wage. That is what you take. As a whole large number of us are in situations where we're price takers. We can't bargain for what we want. We can't bargain for our labor. I want to work in the public service. I get onto the fixed pensionable. And whatever the fixed pensionable is paying at whatever time of the day, that is it. Those wages are not adjustable in real time. What if I'm a businessman and my wholesale supplier sells me a tin of milk for $300 and my markup is 10%? Then I sell a tin of milk for $330. And so tomorrow he comes and he says, this milk is now $350. The price has gone up by $50. My 10% will reflect that price change. I will now sell for $350 plus 35, $385. And so that price gets passed on to the consumer. And when the consumer comes to my store and they recognize, hey, milk gone up. Public servant comes to my store and says, hey, milk gone up. What do they do? What choice do they have? What choice do you have? You could put the money in the water and squeeze it. Or you could buy the milk. Because when you check all your supermarkets, you recognize price has gone up. But with the increase in price, the store owner is not losing a thing because that price is being passed on to you. Right? Likewise, as public servants, we accept price. We are price takers. Salaries are fixed. Allowances are fixed, not by us, but by the government, the people we work for. Or the people who work for us and make it look as though we work for them. Especially when union representation is weak. We take what they give us. They say 6% for 7 years, 6% for the last 2 years. That's what you get. That's what you take. And when market prices are changing and grants are being given out, they are being given out in sectors that you are not in, sectors that you don't control, sectors that you will remain price takers. So the fisher folk, however you define the fisher folk, will get $150,000. Call it one time. I don't want to make it too complicated, so I'm not going to discuss the grants that were given to the rice farmers and this person and that person. I'm sticking with fisher folk this morning because I want to demonstrate something to you. For the most part, the fisher folk owns the plant, the vessel, the fishing boat, right? And the entire family, the entire staff on that plant, every single person, for the greater part, who works on that boat comes from the same family. Y'all know what I'm saying? Follow me. Why not us? Plant doesn't have to be land-based. It's on the water top. Goes out there, sometimes spends 2 days and comes back. With large catch. Or even small catch, whatever. But let's continue to talk about this. The fisher folk, and I'm looking at it from one angle right now, the owner of that fishing boat. Number one fisher folk, the owner of that fishing boat. That fishing boat, dependent on size, for the greater part will have at least 4 fishermen, sailors, crew members, whatever you call it, the captain and let's say 3 others, 3 helpers, dependent on the size, minimum. So here is a family that has a fishing boat. They own it. And have 4 family members working that boat. Good? 4 family members working that boat. How much money do they get as a one-time grant to compensate, to assist, to alleviate the financial stress resulting from the changing market prices, cost of production, cost of inputs? Let's talk about that. Remember, 4 of them are on the boat. But the owner is usually never on the boat. And so the owner comes in for a share. And the 4 sailors come in for a share each. And so 5 shares will go to 1 family. Y'all do the math. $750,000. Just like that. $750,000 just like that. And remember, I'm using a minimum number here. It's a minimum number of 4 sailors because of the size of the vessel. I'm saying use a small vessel, 4 sailors. And so what you need to recognize here is that through this one-off payment to fisher folk, this thing has gotten a little more sweet. Because imagine when you got the owner of the boat, 4 family members working the boat, and a mother and sister selling the fish in the market, or selling some of the fish in the market. Then you have 5 plus 2, 7. Right? Am I right? So if 5 is getting 750, and the mother and the sister comes in with 150 each, you're talking $1,050,000 for 1 family. You think it's a long stretch of my imagination? If you think it is a long stretch of my imagination, go and check the fishing communities and see how they operate. If you think that's a long stretch of my imagination, you go and check Annandale, Lusignan, Unity. Go and check them and see how they operate. I see Gail Watson and Mark Doris, everybody's doing a calculation. Y'all follow me? Otherwise, you're going to get lost. Right? So we can be talking about this thing which looks like small thing, as I call it, small thing on an individual basis. It's actually a big thing when the family is considered as a unit. Just like that, a family in Annandale, Lusignan, Unity, and so on could be $1,050,000 richer with one cash grant. One cash grant. And they are not price takers. Nathan Fraser, you're wrong. If you listen to Zulfikar, when he was at Lusignan, Annandale for sure, you would hear him say that they have received a list with I'm calling it loosely sailors for each vessel. They have received a list for sailors for each vessel, and they're going to stick with that list. So it is not owners alone, and owners alone can be considered fisherfolk. Right? So you're wrong there, Nathan, just by way of correction. So we can adjust. Good? So I'm saying, or what was I saying? Just like that. You have this one family, $1,050,000, richer by one cash grant. One cash grant. A one-off payment. Let me throw into that mix what Jose Morgan is pointing out in case y'all didn't recognize it. The WPA proposed at the time when it projected production from ExxonMobil was perhaps less than a quarter of what it is now. The WPA through Clive Thomas proposed a grant, a cash grant to every household of 5,000 US, which approximates the $1 million. David Granger administration did not accept it. The PPP kind of hinted at liking it. But the possibility is there's an implementation of it via the PPP, but not universally. The WPA made a proposal for universal distribution of this cash grant. None of the administration has acknowledged that or have committed to doing it. But sometimes you don't say, I love you. You show, I love you. Sometimes you don't say, I hate you. You show, I hate you. As I said, there are many ways of choking a dog. It's not necessary for the PPP to come out and say, this Buxton proposal is great and we're going to implement it, because it would be a feather in the cap of the academics at WPA, because a lot of people like to say WPA is an academic party. So it would be a feather in the cap of the folks over at WPA for any of them to acknowledge it as a great idea for Guyanese citizens. So don't let us acknowledge it. But we can surreptitiously implement it by a sleight of hand. And so the possibility is we're having a sleight of hand here. Right? And it may not be $1 million in every instance. But it also could be $1 million divided in several parts. Maybe there can be 4 cash grants of $250,000 each. 4 different payments, $1 million at the end of the year. 5 different payments of $200,000, 6 different payments of one something, and so on. So it can take different shapes and form. But it's not being implemented universally. What is important to note is that these grants are being given to the people who are the owners of the plant, production plant. The people who can actually pass on the cost of production. And that cost of production is being passed on and was being passed on and will always be passed on by the fisher folks. Because when fuel prices increase, or when market prices increase for other commodities, check on the market and you will see the price of fish has changed. When you used to get 3 banger for $500, you're now getting 2 banger for $500. When you would have gone to the wharf and pay $150 a pound for banger, you're now paying $260 a pound for banger. Because the price of production has changed according to the producers, the fisher folk, and so they have changed their price on the market. And so they're getting 2 sweet out of 1 cane. Just keep that in mind. You're getting 2 sweet out of 1 cane. What are the public servants getting? What are the price takers getting? What are the price takers getting? The public servants? Not. Zilch. Zero. But for one reason or other, like it or not, we are continuing to hold on to our public servant jobs. We make it seem as our only source of financial security. Or is it financial insecurity? Because I think, for the most part, public servants are financially insecure. Because they live from paycheck to paycheck, paycheck within paycheck. For the most part, payday to payday. Some of them can't make the next payday. Some of them work for their rent money. How they survive outside of that is a mystery. Right? And surviving out of paying rent is supposed to be more expensive than rent itself. At least my calculation. And so if outside of your public servant job you're able to make rent by some hustler or some firm, you should let that side hustle be your main hustle. If your side hustle is making more than your main hustle, then perhaps you need to use inverse. You need to invert it. Make your main hustle your side hustle, and your side hustle your main hustle. I don't know how you're going to make your public servant job your side hustle. But in reality, the question is, why not us in the sectors where these grants are being given? Why not us in the sectors? Why don't we have a whole host of people in a whole host of our people in the fishing industry? Why not? Why not? Aren't we good fishers? Aren't we good fishers? Aren't we good learners, let's say? Because, hear me, I happen to go to the seafront to buy fish ever so often. And I see a few of us black folks offloading fishing boat as grunt labor for the other people who own fishing boats. Listen, the nights I recognize black people not into fishing, but tell me why. I'm trying to understand why. Make me understand. They tell me what I know. I want to understand why not. That's the question. Why not us? Somebody said the other day black people can't swim. Who said you gotta learn to swim as a fisherman? said so? Yeah, all those some black people went Carnival cruise or whatever it's called the other day. You think they know how to swim? You think they know how to swim? So don't come with that one. Black people can't swim. Why not us? I know. I know of a few blacks right around Buxton who have worked on boats and so they have the knowledge. But why weren't they able to move from being a sailor perhaps on a boat to owning a boat? I know a lot of my villagers, for example, a lot of young men from my village who worked on boats in Guyana. Right? When Alanover says, Dr. Kidaki, sir, tell us something we don't know already. I'm telling you something you think you know. You know they say it right in front of your eyes and you don't see it? Right? It's right in front of your eyes and you don't see it. Price increases are right in front of our eyes. And people paying the price increases. But it doesn't appear as though they recognize the impact. And they recognize the difference of the impact on their lives as against the lives of other people. Because I would believe that recognition would cause a difference in behavior. While public servants are made to pay these increases with no support whatsoever from the administration, other people are paying the increases. But they're getting support from the administration to pay the increases by way of these grants in these quote-unquote productive sectors. Despite the fact that those very people who are getting these grants are able to pass on the cost. Excuse me. Are getting to pass on the cost. You all have to excuse me, I have to get some liquid. I don't know what's that. God, what's it? Yes. To you folks. So yes, my friend, Hanover. Allow me to tell you what you think you know. But that sidetracked me a bit there. So I was saying there are a lot of folks from my community, young men I know, who worked on boats, trawlers especially, in places like Guyana, Suriname and so on. And they don't come back home and buy a boat. They might come back home and buy a minibus. Owning a boat is like owning a minibus, you know, to some extent. It's somebody you're giving to work it. Oh, Lord. Well, Roscoe is saying that there are also black boat owners in Guyana. So why not in Guyana? Right? So they're not coming back here and invest in boats. We're not seeing, we're only hearing about their exploits on boats in Guyana and so on, and how much money they can make and so on. Is it that there's an absence of an enabling environment locally for black people to get into fishing? That's a question I want to ask. Do you know the procedure to become a licensed fisherman? Because a fishing vessel, your boat that is, has to be licensed, just like a motor car has to be licensed to work the road, or a minibus. So has anybody investigated what is the procedure to get your vessel license? And whether or not black people get an easy time getting their vessels licensed? Talk to me. Lenata Sana is telling me black people are in the business but on a small scale. That's true. Are we talking minority here? Are we talking majority? I am sure we have persons who benefited, black people who benefited as fisher folk. Because like I said, you got a few black people. Yes, this is like Shabu. You got a few black people who work on these fishing vessels, whether to provide grunt labor or otherwise. So maybe their names would have found themselves on the list and they would have got 150. But are we talking minority? At least I'm talking bigger numbers, majority. Mark Doris asked a very good question. How much money will Pretty Paul Singh be getting? Right? And so here's a bigger picture. Here's a very important question. How much money Pretty Paul Singh will be getting? Because he falls under fisher folk. And if he gets money out of these grants for fisher folks, then I'm sure it's double or triple dipping. Because I'm sure he would have already benefited from sort of reliefs that were given to big industries, big industry players by way of tax relief and so on from GRA. So Mark wants to compound the issue here, compound and complex, right? But I'm just bringing this to the fore so as a people we can examine some of the things which affect us and we don't even pay enough attention to see how it affects us. You know, one of the things that is important in all of this discussion? Have you ever asked yourself how much money fisher folks pay back to this state as taxes? I was talking about the licensing. I believe as long as they pay the licensing fee for the year, they have met their obligation. Nobody checks on whether or not they pay taxes. But it is taxpayers' money that is giving them all of these benefits right now. This is almost $1 billion in grant. Almost $1 billion in grant. Who are the majority taxpayers in this country? With certainty, public servants. So even the little that you have shall be taken away. Even the little that you have shall be taken away. From your meager wages and salaries, taxes are being deducted. And those taxes are used to empower another set of people, but not you. Y'all got me? Have you taken time to analyze that? Somebody said blacks are not into the fishing business. Because they see it as a low-end job. It's not a high status job. I think you're wrong. Right? I think you're wrong. You know, as a youngster growing up, we used to say the man who runs things is a gas station man. As youngster. Because you sell gas almost every minute of the day. You always got, when you look at the pump attendants, they always got a fat wad. And people used to say, I want to be a gas station manager, boy. There's any money there. I want to be a minibus conductor. And you ask yourself why the society has deteriorated. Because people look at things at face value. I want to be a minibus conductor, but it doesn't matter with the money because you have a fat butt sitting down, impressing all them little school girls. Wearing the latest. Could always buy a 2-piece meal. Right? And so they see that as status jobs, right? But when you look at the fisherman, he always rank. Well, not always, but once he's on the job, he might be ranked. Or is it rank? Whichever guy, he likes a rank. But I think it's rank. Always smells of fish. Perhaps looks untidy because he has to be handling this wet, slimy stuff all day or so. And so y'all look down upon the job. But consider that every trip that boat makes out there and comes back in is hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. Cash money most times. So in 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 days, assuming you make 3 trips in a week, because like I said, some go out there and they overnight. They spend a 2 days and they come back in and then they offload, sell and go back out and so on. Right? Consider that the owner of a vessel might be turning over $1 million plus in a week, and you call it demeaning, or you call it what? Low status. Why not us? Because sometimes we don't have the vision, we don't see far enough, we don't dig deep enough. I remember at least one family in Buxton had fishing boats. And not only was that family the happiest, I'm judging from outside, right? The happiest, perhaps most progressive when those boats were working. But the village of Buxton was also happy and perhaps more progressive when those boats were working. Y'all hear what I'm saying? I've seen that with my own eyes. Every other day or so, this family used to be, or family members used to be rolling around the village with baskets of fish on a horse cart or on a motorized vehicle, selling fish within the Buxtonian community. Not only were we getting fresh fish, but fresh fish at a good cost. And people were buying that fish for personal use and resale. And so, by that family mere ownership of a vessel or two, industry and commerce was being driven in Buxton in the area of fish. Some people were buying for salted fish, some people were buying for fresh fish, and so on and so forth. And that family was thriving. Family members start driving car and flossing their body. Distraction came. Because I guess by then they realized that, hey, every 2-3 days we could we turn in $1 million or more. Money making. And in many instances, not understanding management of money. Misuse and misappropriation most likely took place. I don't know the circumstances under which Those vessels disappeared from Buxton. But I'm just reflecting on, yeah, we had fishers here. We had fisher folks here. Why not us? Why are we not in larger numbers in the fishing industry? Why are we not in larger numbers in fertilizer importation? Because that's where the government seems to be pouring money. I think we got another billion going to fertilizer again. Why not us? Is somebody not pointing the way? Is the industry which we are represented in small numbers in too capital intensive? Because the fishing industry is kind of capital intensive, you know. Every day, once you're going out to sea, you gotta buy ice. And you gotta put food on the boats. And so if you go there and you don't get a good catch, your ice gone. You operate at a loss. Ice and gasoline, those are two things you gotta buy every day once you're going out there. Unless you're buying it in large stock. Or unless you're producing your own ice in large quantity. Capital intensive, come to think about it. Costs a good money management. So is it too capital intensive? Or are the regulations too stringent? It makes it difficult for us to get into the market. Many argue that one of the fallout Glenlal got with the PPP government right now is because they didn't grant him a trawler license. But they granted a Trinidadian a trawler license. So if they want to keep you out of the industry, they can keep you out through the regulations. So are black people suffering that fate? Is it being made difficult for them to get into the industry? Those are just some things I'm musing over. And I want to help you to muse. I want you to help me to muse over them. It's 8 hours 14. Why not open up the lines? And I want us to stick along this line of discussion. Why not us? The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. You tune to the Buxtonian morning time. Why not us?
Because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. This all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that we work for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Now somebody's sharing a perspective with me here. Shabu James said that his family are, well, assuming Shabu is a male, I don't know. But Shabu is saying that the family was in the fishing business. His grandfather and sons owned the boats. And in those days, fishing was a business to get away from. And that's when the Indians got into fishing. I would like to understand why in those days fishing was a business to get away from. Right? I would like to know that. Because like, they say great minds think alike. Fools also do, you know. So don't get conceited. Mark says Forbes Warner was teaching this nation long before. So my question is, why was fishing a business to get out of at that time, Shabu? I don't know. I'm trying to understand. Because I would believe that when Forbes Burnham said, hey, forget the smoke herring from foreign, Yalu Mexal fish. Immediately, the value of fish went up. Because you can now make value-added products from fish. Good? And so the banger that people used to throw along, throw one side and say, I don't like banger. Banger is small fish. I want big fish. Now took on a new value. It became salted fish. So the same banger that you would buy for $200 a pound, you take it and you salt it, etc., and you now get $800 a pound. The value has gone up 400%. Why then do I want to get out of the fishing business? Right? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand why fishing was a thing to get out of. And if you still are asking if it was the right thing to do, why did the Indians get into it? Right? They say one man's garbage is another one's treasure. And so y'all showed out. Right? Y'all showed out. And somebody else pick it up. What else did we throw out? And others picked up? Large scale farming. Because it seems we're not large scale farmers anymore. We're now trying to get back into large scale farming, and we're taking a whipping because we don't have the infrastructure. And the people who already have the production advantage, the productive advantage, their representatives are ensuring that they keep us suffocated for as long as possible because they're not providing the infrastructure to aid our large-scale production. In case you don't understand what I'm saying, large-scale farming is now dominated by Indo-Guyanese especially. And this Indo-Guyanese government is doing their utmost, we Guyanese like to say utmost best, they're doing their utmost best to ensure that large-scale production in Afro-Guyanese communities is restricted because they're not providing the infrastructure to aid its development. When I was analyzing the budget, I show you, for example, where in Indo-Guyanese communities and districts, you had a lot of farm to market roads being developed. But in Afro-Guyanese districts, example where the raid projects are, Buxton, Ithaca, Triumph, and Mocha. Then developing the farm to market roads there. You heard of road proposal for road developments in Mocha, Barnwell being disregarded. And so if we can prevent them from from large-scale production, then the areas which we dominate will continue to dominate large-scale production. And the income gap will remain there, and they will continue to have to turn to us. And we got them right there. Mouth is muzzled by the food it eats. Call your life, good morning.
Mr. Gaddafi?
Present.
Hello? I wanted to speak to you off the air concerning the same subject we're discussing.
Okay, let me see. I'll do that. I'll have to take a musical break or something. You promise to be short. Can it be done quickly?
Yes, it can be quick.
Okay. Y'all bear with me. Yes, call. I'm listening.
concerning the fishing
Caller, you're live now.
Tell me when to start.
Yes, you can go ahead.
I was in that fishing industry. I went to the agricultural bank to get a loan to go into it. And I was told it was only one more person looking like me that was in that industry. Anyhow, I was given the loan and I started out with it. I was forced to have only Indian fishermen on that boat for several reasons. And the Indian fishermen made sure that they see it that you fail as a black man. Because they always came back with a sad story because they sold the catch out on sea. So they dominated the sea by way of a lot of skullduggery. And I have proof of that. Because I had to take a lot of them. One time I had the whole crew locked up at the Buxton police station. Because they said they couldn't do any fishing. And still when the policemen searched them, they had money of fortune in ice. So it's not easy.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the experience of a black man in fishing. I want to ask this question. You see, you have to understand the enemy. Caller live, good morning. Caller live, good morning. You see, when you understand the enemy, you can know how to counter the enemy. But in these murderous times, you might be putting a family member at risk. Can you be a black owner of a fishing boat with an Indian crew, but a black captain or someone who's black to watch your back? Will they throw that person overboard? Or will that person join them and throw you overboard? I'm just asking. Right? So sometimes some of the challenges are real. I'm not saying that they don't exist. But the question is, how do you counter them? You have to plan to succeed. Plan to succeed. Don't only look at the challenges. Look at ways and means of surmounting the challenges. So I'm understanding Shabu now a little further. He said they moved away from fishing and they went into shrimping. So while fishing was lucrative, shrimping was a bigger business, and I'm not guessing here. I know shrimping is bigger business, sea bobs and so on. Money dead there, prawns and thing, big money thing, right? So Shabu didn't, his family, you know, sometimes that's why you have to ask the whole story. They didn't just move out of fishing as far as he was saying to me earlier. They move on to a more lucrative aspect of the marine business. Right? You can correct me if I'm wrong, bro. But that's what I'm understanding. Sometimes, and this is why it's important. Yesterday I talked about not being an island. This is why it's important not to be an island. Why is it I have to be a joiner, a tradesman, and my child a public servant? Because joinery is back-breaking business, joinery is dirty skin business, joinery is wherever. And so I don't want my child to do that. I want my child to be the manager of some public service office. But joinery provided for that child, my family, and has us healthy, financially and otherwise. But my child is going to run some public service office earning less than I am paying the labor in my joinery shop. And this is not exaggeration. I've seen it. I see it all the time. Your laborer is earning more than your son is earning in a public service job, but he in a good job. Your son is earning less than you're paying your apprentice, but he in a good job and looking down upon your apprentice. He should have been your apprentice. So the joinery shop that we have, or I have, should see continuity. And more than important, not only continuity, but it should see growth and transformation. Because I came up in the era where you use hand saw, and spoke shave to make furniture. But my son came up in an era where there was the availability of router and banded saw and table saw and whatever else. And so while my son should know the skills, the intricacies of producing furniture, he also should be able to move it from the heavy manual task, laboring, to mechanization. Why are we not doing that? Why? Why not us? Look in almost every quote-unquote Indo-Guyanese community, and you see Navin and Jairam upholstery, Navin and Jairam furnishings, Navin and Jairam Anil and Angelita this, Ramlad and Sons, mechanic shop and son. But when we look into our communities, we see Kams fast food, let's say. I'm using Kams because I don't want to call nobody name for the say kind of maligning them or anything. Because I don't want to know what people are into. But in our neighboring communities, we're seeing partnerships, and in our communities, or neighboring communities, partnership or family business, and in our communities, you're seeing like a one-man show. I was showing my son the other day. We were driving on the Buxton line top. I was wondering why this. I wonder why I talk these things, right? Why do I talk these things? Ignatius Dalton says, very interesting topic, but these things should be discussed by black leaders in black community on the bottom house. This is my bottom house. I don't have the leisure of going into every community to sit at the bottom house and talk with people. I don't have the resources to do it. First thing, I'm a known entity. Nobody wants to come to any bottom house with me. You think I'm going to announce that Kiraki Amsterdam is coming into BV to talk to y'all on the bottom house? Anybody got time for leave the thing and come and listen to Kiraki Amsterdam? As San Boronian said, we don't want outsiders in our business. So enter, if you know mathematics for yourself. I'm saying, listen, this is my bottom house. Let's talk at my bottom house. So back to topic. I'm driving with my son the other day. We going somewhere. In fact, he was driving. Because he's getting practice driving a truck. So we're going and I saw Lusignan line top. A whole set of youngsters with red flags stopping traffic and chasing sheep. You're chasing sheep into a yard, a pen, whatever you call it. At first glance, I would say there was at least 60 sheep being chased in. And I turned to my son and I said, look there. You notice some big to little chasing sheep? From big to little, the smallest child, I don't think the child could be past 6. Maybe I'm being conservative. Chasing sheep. They're chasing the sheep into this place. A business I know. And then I turned to him and I said, you see that family there? You see those people chasing the sheep? That's one family. From mother, from father, right down to the smallest child is involved in that sheep operation. What do? They buy sheep, they rear sheep, they slaughter sheep. That's their business. Right? So if the father crap out and dead now, the mother is involved in the sheep business. She knows what to do. If the children, if the mother and father crap out and dead, the children in the sheep business, they know there's continuity. But we in our communities is father alone grinding behind this particular thing. Children in the public service. Daddy dead, business done. Why not us? Why is it that we're not building these big, successful establishments in whatever we do? Buxton has one, well, not one, Buxton has several joiners. But I dare argue there's one of the most equipped joiner shops in Buxton. But being at a big showcase, of home furnishings produced in Buxton, why not us? I have a young relative as a mechanic. When certain people in certain areas are confronted with the most difficult of problems, they would call this youngster and he would go and fix it in quick time. I'm talking about big auto dealers and so on. Quick time he would fix it. But he ain't got no big mechanical establishment where they have to come to him. Why? Why not us? That's my question this morning. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. There's something that I wanted to talk about. I'm listening to myself to find it back. But let's talk the thing. 6225933 is the number to call. Yes, McDonald says over and over. What is over and over? Well, I like pain, Sean. I like sharing my pain. When it's hurting me, it must hurt you too. And that's why I share it, so we can examine it and find solutions together. Me talking to nobody about Lyman and Jelly George. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Somebody said there ain't nothing wrong with doing it, but it's doing it all the time. Right? Doing it all the time. I'm not a magician. I am not the best thing that I'm not the sliced bread. I don't know it all. But I keep encouraging, and I will keep encouraging our people. And like I usually say, anything I encourage you to do, I'm willing to try. Or I have already tried. Whether we lose or draw, I've tried. And so most times I'm talking from a point of view of having been there, done that experience, or having walked people to being there and doing that. I've held many hands and led them to success. A lot of people might not know, and it's not that I want to be blowing my horns here and there and so on. But most times I sit here and I talk from a point of view of experience. You think, and this is me here. You think I can invite my son to say, come host a morning, Buxtonian morning time for me? No. My daughter? Definitely not. But let me call any of them and say, got some business here I'll do. I got some business here I'll do. They're up and ready. But they ain't playing politics. They will support me in the background, but they ain't coming to front with no politics. Call it live, good morning.
Morning, Kadaki, and morning, Guyana. When it comes to business, there's a lot of dynamics involved as far as why we are not there. Now, when I lived in Guyana, my father actually was a baker. He worked for some business, might have been Humphrey's Bakery, and he used to deliver bread, those big bicycles with a big thing in front.
The carrier bikes.
And after that, after that, he worked for, I guess, some other bakeries, Williams Bakery, and he eventually opened up his own bakery and also a retail store that I used to sell in, right? And I mean, didn't really understand all of that and how that dynamics work. All I knew is after school, I would go and work in the store, count money, this, that, and whatnot. So eventually migrated, and my father never took up baking again, right? Not even in reference to business ownership. So, I mean, my father, never went to school or anything like that. So, in coming abroad, I would have think that possibly that's something he may have wanted to continue, but I think he was working since he was like 12. So, tired, but he worked in other business or worked for other folks. So here is it. That continuation of understanding business never got continued in my later teen years, in my 30s, and in my 40s. That's when I realized the importance of business. I got the business bug. So that gap is so immense in a lot of instances for us, is that you cannot recover, in terms of understanding business and stuff like that. Now, after that, I mean, I worked for several folks, corporation, this and that, and, moved around. And I was able to go into business with 4 other gentlemen, and the business wasn't successful, but it propelled me into really let me understand the way to, for me or for my future is to get into another business, and that's what I did, and I'm still in that business. But it's hard now, to bring your children along, and I've had several friends who have tried to, encourage their children. I mean, besides, yes, you go to college, this, that, and whatnot, but the level of understanding where the children see themselves and what they're seeing other, say, Afro-Guyanese doing, which is go to school, get a good education, and work for the government. And we got to understand, as far as in Guyana, when you get emancipation and the blacks were able to get these cushy jobs, that's what they stay in. They didn't see a means of, where the business is going to be something you can hand down. You can't hand down your job, but you can hand down your business. And that's something we simply just don't get. And the African youth need to see more of us in business so that they can get employment. And if you look at the Indo-Guyanese, they employ their own people. And then we have to go now to them for jobs, as opposed to us owning the jobs. And when our children are on summer break or any other break, they can now see how business is done and get the bug. And that's my take.
Dogo.
Yes.
Several things. First thing, I wanted clarity. You said your father migrated, or you migrated and he never baked again?
Yeah, we all did migrate, myself and siblings,
okay,
along with my father.
Including your father?
Yes.
Good. All right. I'll address that just. I'll talk about that just now. Something else I wanted to ask. Or this is more a comment. Perhaps about bringing our children along. Sometimes we fail to bring them along because we want them to operate in the business in isolation of the business. We want them to provide the labor, but not understanding, number one, the importance of the labor and the returns on the labor. And so they become resentful. Every day I gotta mix a bag of bread, a bag of flour. Every day. And if I ask this man for $10, a problem. Right? And so they become resentful and they just leave and go and find something to make themselves their own man and woman. Do you find that as an experience?
No, I have not found that as my experience. But what I think it is that we look to, well, I don't want my children to do this because it's hard and it's backbreaking. So, let them do something else.
Okay.
But the value is continuity to hand on to next generation, and that's what we do not have.
Thank you. Like I said, it's on the next generation to be able to bring it into the technological age. Of course,
Yes,
some of the old heads are not keen on listening, because a young son might come and say, hey, Daddy, I find a machine that could make this same flour in 10 minutes as against our. Bye. This is how I know it. Right? We have those challenges too. Thank you, Connor.
Sure. All right.
Let me tell you something. Continuity. Getting family members involved and helping them to understand what's involved in the business and why it's, as I would say, important to bring people along with you, maybe to a point of similar understanding. That makes a whole lot of difference. I know of a family in my village here again, and their father had two baker shops. And once he died, those bakery died with him, quite frankly. At least production it's a technical discussion here. Very technical. But once he died, the bakeries become defunct. Not one of his offspring, and when I say offspring here, I'm using it wide. Not one of his sons, daughters, nieces, nor nephews is in the business of baking today. But this man had two baker shops. None of them got into the baking business. I leave it there. I don't want to say too much more about that baking, those bakeries, because I'm sure it can become touchy. I say to folks all the time, baking is one of the things I always had an interest in. As a matter of fact, I remember asking that family to rent me one of the bakeries. They said, we ain't renting, we ain't selling. I could tell you the state of the same bakery now though. And I'm not rejoicing because I pass it every day and it irks me. It is now debris. It is in tatters. It has collapsed. I always had an interest in bakery. Not that I can bake, but I recognize that if you have a bakery business, you're in the money. People eat bread every day, morning, noon, and night. One of the surest and perhaps fastest selling commodity in any community. And if you can make it of a high quality, you can do no wrong. So I always had an interest in bakery. But it's one of me, I can't do everything. Fishing industry, I always saw it as good business too. Right? These are just ideas I'm pitching out there. Why not us? Buxton has one of the biggest bakery, most popular bakery, Benjamin's Bakery. But I guarantee you that there is space for at least 2 other bakeries in Buxton. But if you attempt to establish another bakery in Buxton, you're going to hear, you're bad-minded, you're jealous, you're trying to fight down Benjamin. Or mentality. But you will go to another community and you will find 4 bakeries and they fighting down each other. And they don't see it as bad mind. Because they understand that they don't have the productive capacity to meet the demand which is faced by that one bakery. And I'm saying Buxton has at least a capacity for 2 other bakeries because I've looked at the demand and supply from Benjamin's. Despite us having one of the biggest and most popular bakery in our community, there are at least 3 other bread suppliers that come into this village and sell bread and other baked goods. What does that tell you? You got scope. But there's a family that grew up with 2 bakeries and none of them in the business. Strange. I can share a lot of these observations. But it comes back to the question, why not us? Are we not guided enough? Are the regulations keeping us out? Are the leaders not seeing what we do and their success or failure in tandem? Why? Why not us? At 8 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour, I'll take one more call. That should take us to the 9 o'clock hour. And that will be a wrap. Let me see if there is any voice note. No voice note. No final call. Then at Fraser saying she knows of Willis. Willis had to be a box in front, am I right? At one time I count from recollection, and I'm thinking Boxer had more than 8 bakery, and that's conservative. I remember Sprackton. Friendship Baghdad side that is. Below Key. Milwaukee Bagram side, Milwaukee Central. London's Company Central. Now if I add Willis, I'm suspecting Willis had to be up front. I know the name Willis. That's 6. What did we have up Milwaukee front? Well, I'm saying conservatively, Buxton had about 8 bakery. Right? Folks like Irma, I'm assuming you're older than I am, might have more information, but I'm saying conservatively, Buxton had about 8 bakery, and every single one of them used to do business, including housewives taking their prepared products and selling it to them to bake on weekends. I remember my mother, or my household, preparing the bread and thing and putting it on pan and tell carry this at Sprackton, you bake it, or carry this at Bilokili where we bake it, because we grew up in close proximity to the two of them. And you bake and you pay a fee. So the bakers weren't only relying on their output in terms of making products, they were also providing services in the community. Corlelia, good morning.
Good morning, Karaki. Good topic. Karaki, I think the reason why a lot of those bakeries didn't, parents die or parents migrated to other country and they just leave it like that. They had kids or family member there who could have done it. And most of those things you need to get help. If it's not financially, in some type of way. And if people doesn't push or try to say, well, look, do this and I'll do this and I'll, push, it's not going to work, because a lot of us, I could say for myself, my mom used to sell, that what I remember, she used to sell paddy and salt beef. And she was a person. You couldn't stop her. I remember when my mom said she was going to do it, my grandmother said, go ahead, as my grandmother had 2 kids, and she pushed them, plus she had her sister, and they pushed their children to take care and do things. And my mother was the one who run the show. My grandmother had a husband, but my mother was the husband too. And she did not play, she pushed to get anything that she needed. And a lot of times, Kadaki, yes, it's harsh for what you're saying, but as the next generation coming up, they have to see young men and try to push to get these things done. Because I know Mr. Willis Baker Shop, and that baker shop that I used to go there and take our bread, because my grandmother used to mix our bread because he's our family. So my grandmother used to mix our bread and we would take it there and he would plot it off for her. And likewise, there's a number of other people, but many times and we used to be there with them. And many times he did not have hands to get bread. If you don't come by 3 o'clock, bread done. And this bread is done.
And you know that is still a situation in Buxton with the bakery, right?
Yes.
If you don't go there by a certain time, you can't get bread, you can't get pastry, you can't get anything. The gas cases are empty.
Many times I go to get what I want and I can't get what I want, so I got to do without it. But, I can bake too. I can bake. My sister could bake because my grandmother used to mix her bread and take it to the baker shop. But I migrated, so that's maybe if we was there, maybe, who knows, probably would have had a baker shop, but we didn't do that. But it's just to say that people look at things differently, and the older generation, they didn't sit down and talk to the children as you had a topic there about giving over things. They don't do that. Things that people need to know, that once you meet a certain age, you got children, hand over things to them. sometimes you could annotate it partially, but as long their name is there. Say, look, if my eyes close to there tomorrow, this is where I have this, and you go to it. My mom told us. My mom always would say, do not, she said, I have this here. What I have here, don't make nobody come in here and pick it up. You cry. Don't cry. Stand up and be strong and take care of this, because it's important to you. Some people believe in saving the money at home, and some people don't like to go to the bank and put all these things that older people grow up with their family, and this is sometimes as children they get into that too. But it's not good to have money at home. Fire take place, and then you burn up all your money, and then that's it. You lose up everything. So it's best to find a bank that you want to think have a safety deposit. Put it in there. The safety deposit box would stay there. Everything would be right there, and you have a key to it. You can go in and take it out.
Thank you, caller.
All right.
One of the things to consider in closing, well, somebody said they need to call to talk about their experience, so you will get the opportunity. Call even if I'm speaking. One of the things I look at, and I know there are people who can identify with what I'm about to say. And you all call me what you want after. But this is how I look at things. A lot of our folks leave these lands. They migrate. Say they're going to look for greener pastures. But they got green pastures right here, they didn't recognize it, you know. Your family would have a business. A going concern that just needs new ideas and maybe an input of capital to be a major player. And you decide, my hope is by going to the US or going to Trinidad or going to Barbados, but my hope is outside of Guyana. And so instead of taking the cost of travel and preparation for travel and investing into that business to bring it to life, you gotta travel to another man's country to be what? A price taker. Right? A price taker. I have relatives, I have friends, I have colleagues, I have acquaintances who are always telling me, Mr. Amsterdam, or asking, have you ever gone overseas? Would you like to go overseas? Have you ever considered a vacation to the US, Canada, UK, Trinidad, and so on? And those who are closest to me will hear me tell them, I thought about it, but I refuse to do it. Because when I look at the cost for me to go, I see that as capital for my business. Margaret Padmore said this is for a special day and special program. I'm not sure what she's talking about. Maybe you can enlighten me. But you know what I'm saying? I don't travel to the US. I've never gone to the US. But my rough calculation of going to the US years ago was that it was going to cost me about $200,000 to $400,000. Let's say approximately $500,000 return. I'm not sure if I'm right, but y'all could correct me. There are people who travel. Hey, you know what $500,000 could do for me in business? Magic. Right? I think I've done good things with less than that. Why want to spend $500,000 to go sit down in Uncle Sam and say, I've been to Uncle Sam. I've been and spent 2 weeks with my friend. I've been and spent 2 weeks with my cousin. And the 2 weeks I'm there spending with them, I'm a burden to them, you know. Because they got to feed me. They got to drag me around, taking away from their productive time, right? Would it be more beneficial to me? Would it be water to my grass so I get greener pastures right here? Huh? Y'all hear me? Do we look at it like that? The pasture is greener on the other side, but how did it get green? Lynette Zephyr says it's much cheaper now. How cheap is cheap, Lynette? Because, trust me, Lynette. Right? Trust me. If it's $100, I can do something with it down here and multiply it. You have to understand what you call it, the multiplier effect on the dollar or something like that. Anyhow, it's time for me to go. It's 4 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. But I get it. I hope you get the point. I am sure I will travel at some point in time. But it has to be that point in time when my businesses are generating enough money that I don't have to regret spending the money I went on vacation with. Good? So long as my business still needs capital, I ain't going on no vacation. It's called discipline. It's called delayed gratification. And you enjoy it in the long run. Right? Hey, let me stop this thing. I think you've gotten the message this morning. Why not us? Why not us? Have a good day. I'll see you. Well, tonight we will see you on Kams TV again. Dr. Hinds is on with Politics 101 at 6:30 this evening. And tomorrow morning you will see Dr. Hinds and I on Buxtonian Morning Time. Have a good one. Stay safe. Remember, if you're looking for some place to stay, when you're home, there's Lou's B&B. Even if you're looking for an overnight stay, you're looking for a short time stay, as in a few hours or so, just to rest and recuperate. You can hit me up on my regular WhatsApp, and I'll provide the necessary information for you to use the services at B&B. Right? Lou's B&B. Well, you've seen the images already. Let me just show you them again so you know that you're coming to a good-looking place, tidy, well-kept place, comfortable, AC, and it's minimal cost. You pay $6,000 a day. You could stay 24 hours, you pay $6,000. You stay 4 hours, it's $6,000 because it is $6,000 for the day. Right? Lou's B&B. So if you're coming home for the August holidays, July-August holidays, and you need to stay someplace in the community, hit us up. We'll set you up. And if you're spending more than 7 days, you can get some discounts. So consider that. You don't have to go to the big international hotels to say that you were at the big international hotels. Build your community, man. And eventually your communities could get big international hotels too. How about that? So take a look at Lou's B&Bs. Nice personalized setting that is. Avil is asking if about any holiday to Canada. I feel like you're missing the bus, child. Holidays anywhere after I set my business right. Lou's B&B. As the boys like to say, it is always fresh off the block. Always fresh off the block. Right? Some people find attraction in their bathrooms, so they have to include that bathroom photo there. Right? Have a good day, y'all.